The lesson when good Christians make bad decisions, okay? So that doesn't seem possible because if they're a good Christian, they're not going to make bad choices, okay? But good Christian, I didn't say they made sinful choices. They don't make sinful choices. A good Christian, you're not going to find them at the local bar. They're not taking drugs or not smoking dope or anything. They're good Christians. But somehow, I think the feeling is, since you're a good Christian, if you make a bad choice, there's no residual effects from it because it's not a sinful choice. And so what God does is he tells us a story, and the story helps us to learn that. Now, we have at this time, his name was instead of Abraham, was Abram, and then Sarai instead of Sarah at that time. If you wanted to say the best Christians in all the earth, it would be this couple. Now, they had a nephew, Lot, who was selfish, self-centered, and greedy. And so, yeah, is he ever going to make a good decision? No. Every decision he makes is a selfish decision. So, of course, you're going to reap what you sow. Yeah, no problem here. But how is it that a good Christian would make a bad decision? Well, there's 3 pitfalls I can see in their story, and it's in a 23-year period. So what we have is we have Abraham lived till he was 175, Sarah to 127. So this 23, 25-year period is this little part in their life, but yeah, the residual effects are felt throughout. So the first thing is just 3 things that are pitfalls. This is the first one. Family. You wouldn't think that. You wouldn't think that that would cause a good Christian to make a bad choice, but it is. So what happens here, I've got to give you a little bit of background, and that's this. And they lived, now Abraham, he's the 10th generation from Noah, okay? So just 3 generations later, of course, Nimrod built the Tower of Babel, in the same area, okay? This is where Abraham is. So this is his father, Terah, and so he has and his sister, Sarah, half-sister, and of course they're married. And you go, what? Okay, remember this is only the 10th generation from Noah. So only one family survived the flood, just one. So obviously, when you marry, it's going to be cousins and, it's going to be in those family units. And so anyhow, so Abraham and Sarah, they're married. And then he has 3 sons, and his son, Haran, he has a son named Lot. Now Haran dies, so that means the dad is pretty much, he takes him under his wing, and that's pretty much who he's raising. So here in this family unit right here, we have the dad. And here's what Joshua says of the dad. Joshua said unto all the people, thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, your fathers dwelt on the other side of the flood in old times. In other words, this is right after the flood. This is only 10 generations after the flood. Him would have been 9th generation. The father of Abraham, and they served other gods. So the dad, the family, only 9 generations after the world was destroyed, they're back to serving idols, okay? And then it says right here that and the thing about it is, if I could go back one, back, there we go, wrong one. Abraham and Sarah, out of everybody in this community, out of even his own family, they're the only 2 that don't have God and an idol. They have only God. And so what the Lord has said to Abraham at that time, it tells us in Acts, at that time he says to him, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, leave all the family, and come into the land which I shall show thee. So Abraham is wealthy. I mean, like Bill Gates type wealthy. The thing about it is, if somebody's rich, okay, we say a couple of million, very rich, we're moving into the Bill Gates category of rich. So Abraham, he's one of those people that he's got like the Midas touch. He's just good at what he does, and he knows how to invest and reinvest. Anyhow, he is very rich in cattle and silver and in gold. So Abraham, so he's pretty much going to pack up everything, and he says, God has called me, and I'm going to the land of Canaan. He's getting all of it together, and he's leaving. So here's where family comes in. Dad says, what? You do realize when Abraham's going, his money is going too. So he says, good, we're all going. He's in charge. And notice he says, and Terah took. Wait a minute, who's taking who? And Terah took Abraham and Lot, the son of Haran. He's coming along too. Come on, the whole fam's coming. And his sons and Sarah, his daughter-in-law, and his son Abraham's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees. Now here, see, this is right here. This is where the Tower of Babel was, Ur of the Chaldees, that you have to travel along the river. And he says, we're going to Canaan. Yep, we're going. But the dad comes right here, and he says, stopping. Okay, now Abraham, you're rich, you made money. You go down here, you're not going to make a dime. That place, it's nomadic. You're not going to be able to sell anything, and it's really not safe. We're staying. Dad's in charge. We don't know how Abraham is, but he's married, but we're staying. I have seen, I don't know how many times I could count, that the years we worked with teens, a teenager, or somebody will say, God's called me into the ministry. And mom and dad, and I'm not talking about non-Christians, I'm talking about those that are in church and faithful, will say, no, not a good idea. They feel like that they're smart, they're intelligent, they need to go to university, they don't need to be wasting their life in a mission field. And they get talked out of it by family. Family, listen, I'm telling you, if you want to, this is kind of a tangled web. What do you do when your dad says, yeah, I want to go with you? No, Dad, you're not. Yeah, he's going. And he's in charge. Well, what do you say, Dad? No, you're not in charge. I'm telling you, it's a lot easier for me to tell you what you should be doing with your family than it is when I find myself in that situation. You see what I mean? It really is. It's one of the pitfalls. And so we don't know how long he stayed in Haran, but why he was there, and I'm sure his father thought he was helping his son, but Abraham became even more wealthy. He became richer, he became more prosperous, and he did very well. His father dies at 250 years old, and so God tells him again the second time, that was 4, second time, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house into the land that I will show you. So in other words, it's very clear, black and white, separate from the family, leave them behind, and go to Canaan. So now realize he's not just going with, it's a caravan. He's got servants, he's got goods, he's got livestock, and it says right here, and Abram took Sarai, his wife, and this time we know he's 75 years old, and Lot. Lot? What's he doing? How did he worm his way into this? And all their substance they had gathered, and the souls they had gotten in Haran, and they came forth to go into the land of Canaan. So I'm thinking, how did he worm his way in here? How did he end up on that caravan going? So what you have to do is, what God does is he gives us glimpses of his personality in later chapters, because we're creatures of habit. We have our behaviors are pretty much repetitive. You know what I mean? If it worked before, it will work again. So what we see from Lot, who's now older, he's a man, he's married, he has a family. Two things we know from Abraham and from Lot. If he wants something, he's going to get it. He is ambitious. If he wants it, he will get it. And we know that when he pitched his tent towards Sodom, that's where the place he wanted to go, and his uncle said no, but he's going to do it, he's going to do it, he's going to do it. So this is a guy that once he sets his mind to something, if he has to manipulate, connive, he's going to get it. Another thing he does is when the angels came to Sodom and they said, of course, we know that it was already appointed, the Lord already told them what Lot would do. He said, come stay in my house. They said, no, we'd rather sleep in the street. And what does he do? He pressed upon them greatly. This is a guy who begs, pleads, oh, come on, please, come on, please. I mean, his dad died. Abraham, come on, you've been like a father to me. You can set me up in business. There's nothing for me here in Haran. And, I imagine he did not let up until to the point where he was like, how somebody sort of wears you down? All right, okay, all right. Well, it can't hurt anything. And I can set him up in business and then he'll be off on his own. But do you see, this is where I think the deceptiveness to somebody that sins, we can look at them as Christians and go, you're going to reap what you sow. That's going to catch up with you. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, maybe in 5 years. But the law of reaping and sowing, you can't stop it. That's easy to understand. But when a good Christian, and I mean excellent, has not sinned, they haven't done anything evil, they haven't done anything bad, somehow we think that they kind of escape any results. So it would feel like, come on, it's not going to hurt for him to go. It's not hurt for his dad to go. But what happened was the delay in Abraham coming down here from Haran when he left, as he began moving south, 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 south. If he had gone when God told him, it would have been before the famine. And he would have understood the lay of the land. Because he went down this way, right here. That's what they call the Salt Sea. And they said, archaeological people that find where stuff used to be. Those people. They found 2 lakes. One was a big fresh lake, and the other one was a salt lake. And the whole area, the Bible says, was like the Garden of Eden. So if he had gone earlier, when God told him, and not been delayed here, he would have been down there before the famine and known right where he could have taken his cattle. But he didn't know the lay of the land. I mean, now when he's leaving at 75, there's been a great famine, and as he comes down, when you have a herd of cattle, he keeps moving south and south and south, and it's getting worse and worse because it says it's grievous. So right here, this area in Egypt, is this delta, is this beautiful green area. And so thinking, okay, I got to come down here, park a while, and of course you lease the land that you're on. You don't just get to come with your herd of cattle. And so he'll come there and feed until this famine lets up, and then he'll head back. So this is the second thing. So the first thing is family. Family can, even family that's well-meaning, can talk you into doing stuff that you really don't feel like God wants you to do. Because you want to make family happy. Yeah, I get it. But there are residual effects. It may not happen now, and it may be 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, when you go, yeah, that decision, I just should have said no. Anyhow, the second thing is fear. And I've seen that, where somebody they fear losing their husband, they fear losing their kids, they fear losing a relationship, losing a job. Not that they would do sin or do anything wrong or do anything bad, but yeah, you end up making decisions out of fear. And what happened was, when they came into Egypt, is that Pharaoh doesn't pick out the women are kind of like a wine cellar. they're down there, and you have them in your harem, and then I think I went to 1954 tonight, or whatever that is. So you pick them out, and believe me, I was in Tiananmen Square at the Forbidden City in China when they were talking about the concubines for the emperor, and yeah, it's a whole whoa. Is me. So they go and, I think I would like this or that tonight. And so they kind of dress her up like a present, take her in there and wait out in the courtyard, and then she goes back to the harem. What a life. But anyhow, so the thing about it is what the princes do. The pharaoh doesn't pick them out. He's not bothering with that. They go out and they look around for who they think the emperor would like, and that she's part of the harem. And so when they saw Sarah, I mean, she's 65, but they don't look 65, and she was gorgeous. And so what they would do in Egypt, or what emperors would do if they find out you're married, well, we'll just get rid of the husband, no problem, we'll just kill him and take the wife. Okay, now we got the widow, okay? Suddenly the widow, so he's getting really afraid. Now, fear, if you think you're going to die, I think that's a legitimate fear. Yeah, that's a legitimate fear. So they decide together that she's going to lie and say, he's my brother. Well, technically, kind of, sort of, yes, he is. And so anyhow, she's brought into the harem. Now, when you're in a harem, you don't get out of a harem. It's not like, oh, yeah, this is the pharaoh's collection. It's not like you're in and then you're, okay, decide I don't want you. Well, no, you may sit there for the next 20 years. Whatever. But anyhow, what happens is, Pharaoh wants to show his gratitude to Abraham for his sister, so he sent presents. And so he gets lots of servants as a present. And by the way, and that little package deal was Hagar. And then he gets all sorts of livestock and gold, silver, everything else. So here Abraham's at this camp, and in comes all these gifts. Well, now he's getting deeper into it. How's he going to get out? I mean, you don't lie to Pharaoh and live to tell about it. Yeah, nobody lies to Pharaoh, makes a fool out of him. So and when she's in there, she's never leaving. So what happens is God plagues the entire house of Pharaoh. They all have this plague where they are so, like they're dying, they're sick. And the women have it, the children, everybody that's related, that's a part of Pharaoh's house. Strangely, Abraham's sister seems to be pretty well. So how come she's not plagued? How come everybody else is? So they get to kind of checking this out and find out, oh, that's not his sister, that's his wife. And their gods that are protecting them have done this to us. So they call in Abraham before the royal court. Now you have to realize you have humiliated him in front of his court, you have lied to him, and you have plagued his house. So normally, after they tortured you slowly, and then you were hoping you would die, then the next thing they would do to your, quote, wife. I mean, the position he's in, it could have been horrible. And so he said, what did you do to me? Why did you say, she's my sister? I might have taken with me to wife, now therefore behold thy wife. Like, here, get out of here. So they kicked them out of Egypt. So you think, okay, see, nothing happened. See, Lot came down with them, nothing happened, it's okay, it's all right, don't get upset over anything. And then look, he did that, but look, it's all right, see, nothing happened, we're kicked out of Egypt, done is done. But see, that's the deceptiveness of when God tells us to do something and we let family or fear influence us to do something different. Not sinful, but not obedient. So what happens is they leave, and they head to where they should have headed at the first place. So they're coming up from Egypt. They're coming over here. Now this was 2 at this time. And this area, they said, looked like the Garden of Eden. Now, that doesn't look like the Garden of Eden. But I got tired of looking on the internet for something that looked like the Garden of Eden. And it didn't have houses in either. It just doesn't. And then the stuff they did of Garden of Eden looked really hokey. And I didn't think it looked like that either. So anyhow, but it was gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous land. And if they had gone there in the first place, they never would have been in Egypt. And so now on this side of the Dead Sea, right here, here's Gomorrah, and here's Sodom. Gomorrah, Sodom. And then there's these other cities of the plains, what they call down here. Now this, right here, it's a very, very wealthy city. Sodom is a very wealthy city. But it's a homosexual city. So, and the Bible says it's exceedingly wicked. And so even though Abraham's, he's not going to trade with them, he's not going to go there, he doesn't want anything to do with them. And since he's in charge, Lot, no, we're not doing this. So he sets up Lot in business. So both of them, Lot is now a wealthy man because of his uncle. But Lot wants to go to Sodom, and he wants to do business there, and his uncle won't let him. So you know, Lot, he's kind of conniving. So he sort of gets between the herdsmen. He initiates it. And it's Abraham who says, okay, let's have peace between the two of us. You pick what you want, which side you take, and then I'll go the other way. And so what does he do? He looks at the best land because that's what he wants. He wants the best, and he chooses towards Sodom. And so it's like, toodaloo. I would be like, good. Shouldn't have ever bought them in the beginning. Never had anything to do with them. Good. Done is done. We are over. And so here goes Lot. And this is where, but it says, but the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Whenever you have a word that describes something, it adds punch to it, or it adds, it magnifies the word. So if somebody's wicked, that's bad. Sinners, that's bad. Exceedingly, that's over the top. I mean, that's an evil place. So for 10 years, this is where he lives. Lot is him, his wife. He's got 4 daughters, and his daughters have married 2 men from there, and he has 2 sons. So altogether, that whole family, that there is 10 of them. So what happens at the end of this 10 years, now by the way, Lot has gone from city to city. So this is where they were. He went from city to city to city to city, selling off everything. So now he's in Sodom right here. So this is the king. I don't want to even try to pronounce his name. It's this guy. So he's the one. He's the bad one. He's kind of like the mafia boss. And he has 4 other kings underneath him. So what he does is he makes them pay, and they pay big time. Every single year, they either pay to them or they kill them. So it's kind of a simple choice. I think I'll pay. So that means that living in Sodom, that means that Lot's been paying out too. And so what's happened is this has been for 10 years, and then now these cities all say, not doing that no more, done, you're not getting any more money from us. They said, fine, all right, we're going to kill you and we're going to burn your city down. So that's what they did. All these little flames of fire, that's what they did. They came down and crushed all. So you have all 4 of these kings come down, they kill everybody, they burn their cities, and they move on down. Now down here, they say, well, what have we got to lose? Let's fight. And so they get together, except for Lot, who's safely back in Sodom, and they go to battle against them, and they lose badly. Very, very, very badly. Anyhow, Then they come into the cities, they take everybody captive, they're going to break them back north and sell them as slaves, and so take all the stuff, and they're headed back up. So somebody comes to Abraham. They said, Abraham, now he's 85 years old. They said, they've come in and they've taken your nephew Lot. So at this time, I believe his servants, I don't think it could have been under 2,000. I think maybe about 2,500 servants. It's basically, like you would say, like a traveling city, his caravan was. So what he does is he has 318 of his servants that have been trained. They're warriors. They've been trained from a child up. And what they do is that, now it shows it like this because I couldn't show how really a night raid would look. They come as in a night raid. With a night raid, they don't know who you are, and they don't know how few numbers you have. So he's not a coward. I mean, when he said, Sarah, tell him that you're my brother, I mean, Abraham's not a coward. He comes against 4 kings and an army, and they come in a night raid, and the Bible says there's a great slaughter. I mean, they just are, these are armed warriors. And they go and they rescue Lot, and Lot, oh, thank you, Uncle Abraham, you saved us, this is wonderful. And so I would be like, I would never go back to Sodom again, this is terrible, you were right, it's a horrible place. Nope, he's going back. He said, right back. That's right back. Which goes to show, sometimes you can rescue family again and again and again and again, and they go right back. And this time, the king of Sodom said, he said, you know what? He said, Abraham, let me give you all this wealth we had, and I just take the people. He said, I don't want anything from you. I don't want a shoelace. I want nothing from you. And so, of course, Lot, who by now is Baruch, who was once rich, is going to cash in on his uncle's name. So now when he goes back, it's sort of like, my Uncle Abraham sort of saved your neck. I'm his nephew. What's in it for me? And he becomes the judge. That's why he's sitting at the gate of the city. He's the judge of the city. And as it says in 1 Peter, what he saw and what he heard, he shut his eyes to, because why? He was bribed. That's where he needed the money. So there's no justice, none at all. So here he goes right back to Sodom. Now we come to the third thing. So there's family, there's fear. This is good Christians, and believe me, I've fallen into these pits. And then now we come to the third one. Meanwhile, here's Sarah. She's 75 years old, and she's thinking, that worthless nephew. Basically, what's going to happen is he's going to have to be rescued again. My husband could have died out there at that rescuing him, and if any of those armies come back after us, we'll all be killed. And she realizes that if Abraham's killed, Lot inherits everything. He's the only male relative, and basically she's going to be on the street. So this didn't even come into her brain until after this happened. And so we come to the third thing. Oh, did I say second thing or third thing? I think I did two twos. Yeah. Security. 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 You know, if you were to say, they did this list to men in marriage, what is the most important thing to you? Okay? We kind of think we know what it is, but they put companionship. I was surprised. And then the second thing was, I just was. I didn't say anything, I just said I was. And then the second thing for women, they said, what is the most important thing to you? And they said security. Women, security is number one. And she realizes, we have no heir. We have no heir. So her idea to have for Hagar, her maid, who came from Egypt, was a little gift from Pharaoh, that her personal handmaid, that she and Abraham, she would send him in there to Abraham's tent for the night, and then that baby would be her baby. That idea didn't originate in her head. That came from the early Chaldees. That's what they did. That was their custom. That was normal. That was a lifestyle of where she was. If you didn't have a child, you just hired a slave, and that's your child, and goodbye to the slave, and the kid's yours. Never really quite works like that. So anyhow, but it was for security. This idea didn't come to her. She never would have thought of this, other than this happened with Lot. So you see, if we keep rolling at the ball back uphill, so if Dad didn't come, then he wouldn't have been in Haran. If he wasn't in Haran, then he wouldn't have ended up going to Egypt, but he probably would have been down in the valley to begin with. If he hadn't gone to Egypt, then he wouldn't end up with Hagar. Yeah. So you see what I mean? So sometimes our choices that are affected by family or fear, security, we don't feel the effects of it right now. 5 years we will. 10 years we will. So here it was, Lot, it's like, goodbye, Lot, see you later. Okay, 10 years, now you're dealing with Lot. And now she figures she's got to do something for her security. So of course, 13 years. Oh boy, does that not seem like an eternity? Why, she bare Abraham a son, and Abraham called his son's name, which Hagar bare him, Ishmael. Oh yeah, that wasn't Sarah's son. She tried to get rid of her once, it didn't work, she's back, and she had to watch this child grow up, and now is about right at 16 years old. Well, no, he would be 13 years old. He would be 16, 17 when he left. But, so she had to watch the whole time, while all the servants went on and on. Isn't that boy the cutest ever? He looks just like his dad. Oh, Hagar, you must be so proud of him. Boy, you talk about fingernails across a chalkboard, and you'd have to listen to that for the next 13 years. There's women that get married because they see time slipping away from them. And a guy asks them, it's not who they love, it's not really who they wanted, but it's better than nothing, and it's my last chance. They marry for security, and then they're stuck. They're stuck with somebody. Oh my goodness. I asked, it's not just women, it's men. I asked a guy one time, I said, well, why did you marry her if you're so unhappy? And you know what? He said, because I don't want to be an old bachelor. Well, Bud, after 20 years, hon, I think you might have been happy as an old bachelor. You know? It's like it's slipping away from you, and you know, I got to get it before it's gone. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's like, is that what God wants for you, or does he want you to wait? Well, if I don't get it right now, then I won't get it. You see what I mean? It's not a sinful decision, but it's something we're going to have to live with. Now, all this time has gone by, which Sarah, if I could see the look on her face, I wish I could get one that I could imagine how she looked during that whole time. But now, 14 years later, we know that the angels have come and told Abraham, by you're 99, your wife is 89, next year she's going to have a baby. And of course, they're off to Sodom. And they said, now it's the place 23 years later, 24 years later is just so evil. And they said, should we tell Abraham what we're going to do? Now that's interesting. Why would they say that? It's because he's going to try to rescue him again? He can't. So he prays. Remember? It goes from 50 down to 10. And you know what God showed me right there? And this helped me. This lesson helped me. It's like, Susie, you can't fix it. Pray. You can't fix it. Abraham, you can't fix it. You can't rescue him anymore. You got to pray. You know why Lot made it out of that city? Because he prayed. Sometimes that's the last, I don't want to say it's the last resort, it's the only resort that he could do. So what happens? Of course, we know that the angels come and he tries, all the homosexuals surround the house and try to attack Lot. They pull him in, and then we know what happened. And now this is the picture we see. Every picture that there is up of that. That didn't happen. That shows you where our biblical view can come from a picture, but not from the Bible. It says here, they said, now you got to leave the city. They're pulling them by their hands, the angels are. And he says, because if you don't, we can't do anything. So, in other words, the reason why his wife looked behind her, nothing was happening. She didn't want to leave. Nothing's happening. Why am I leaving? This place isn't being destroyed. Because the Bible says when the sun was risen upon the earth, when Lot entered into Zoar, this is another little town from there, then, that's why every word in the Bible is important, then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah, brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. So in other words, it was then. Didn't happen like, oh, we got to get out of here, it's on fire. No, it's like they're running, and it's like, I don't hear anything, nothing's happening. Why? I'm going back. Hers wasn't to look back, it was, there's nothing happened, I'm going back. That's why she turned into the pillar of salt. But the thing about it is you think, okay, finally, are we never going to be done with Lot? No. Because what happens is he hides in a cave. His two daughters, who have been raised in a homosexual city, realize they're never going to have any children, so they get their dad drunk, and it's incest, so that each one of them can become pregnant. And then you have the Moabites come from one daughter, and the Ammonites come from the other daughter. Does it get any more sordid than that? So Abraham, the two sons of Lot, so the Ammonites and the Moabites, those nations have always hated Israel. Those nations have always fought against his descendants. Oh, and Ishmael, oh, good riddance, good. The kid's 17, we send him out, goodbye forever, we will never see you again. No, it is the Ishmaelites that sold her great-grandson Joseph into slavery. So what God is showing us is who are two of the best people in the entire earth so far as Christians, so far as just the cream of the crop of Christians. It'd be Abraham and Sarah. Could you ever find more two dedicated, loyal people that if something was sinful, they would never do it? But the pitfall of family and fear and security can have a very best of Christians making a bad decision that they're going to have to live with. And the thing about it is that, how do I know it's true? Because it's true for me. There's so many times in my life I could look at this lesson and go, oh yeah, that was me. Yeah, that was me. Not sinful, not evil, but I can see where that definitely influenced my choices. So, that's our lesson.